Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord's eight separated material energies, Ashto Prakrita Proktas. So this word Anvay is like that. The Lord's eight separated material energies, Ashto. Three modes of material nature, Traya eva hi tadguna. The three modes of material nature. And the 16 transformations, the 11 senses, and the five gross material elements like earth and water. Vikara Shodasha Acharye. These are the 16 transformations, which includes Bhumi Raponalo Vayu Khammano Buddhi Revacha Ahankar Ityam Me. So these are like 16 transformations of these elements. With all these, the one spiritual soul exists as the observer. Puman Eka Samanvayat. There is only one supreme soul, spirit soul with all these other elements. Therefore, all the great acharyas have concluded that the individual soul is conditioned by these material elements. Is such verses which describe in detail about the philosophy of Bhagavatam. If these are depicted into the movies, nobody will come for the movies. People want action, drama, and everything. Such philosophies hardly somebody is interested to hear in detail. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. As explained in the previous verse, Kshetreshu Dehishu Tathatma Yogir Adhyatmavid Brahma Gatim Labheta. A spiritually advanced person can understand how the spiritual practice exists within the body, and thus by cultivating spiritual knowledge, he can attain perfection in spiritual life. So, Bhagavad Gita also mentions Kshetreshu. There are two living entities inside the body, which is the spirit souls. One is the minute one, and the another one is Paramatma. The intelligent person who is expert in finding the self within the body must understand the eight external energies. If you open up Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 7, chapter number 7 is entitled as, anybody knows, chapter number 7 of Bhagavad Gita is entitled as Raj Vidya. So, in that, Krishna starts describing and he says, I will tell you a most confidential knowledge today, most Guhyataram, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 7, because that is the start of Bhakti Yoga. As Bhagavad Gita is divided into three sections, so chapter number 7 starts with Bhakti Yoga section. And he says that I will describe you the most confidential knowledge. Raj Vidya, Raj Guhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. And when he starts, now if you start, some Bhagavad Kathakar is there, if he says that I will describe you the most confidential knowledge, then he will jump to Rasilas. Describing about Rasila. For them, the Rasila might be the most confidential knowledge. But when Krishna speaks to Arjuna and he says that I will describe you the most confidential knowledge, he starts with the words of saying, Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayu Khambano Buddhi Revacha. So even if somebody is who is reading Bhagavad Gita and while reading first time, if he comes across this verse that Krishna is going to describe the most confidential knowledge, and when he enters into the chapter, Krishna says there are 8 elements. Then he thinks this is the confidential knowledge, no esoteric stuff, no rasilas or something which is agitating to the senses of materialistic people. Then he says no. Then he says Bhumi Rapo Anulo Vayu Khambano Buddhirevacha Ahankariti Yamme Bhinna Prakriti Ashtada. The very first word of this verse is also like that. Ashtau, 8 elements. Which are these 8 elements? Bhumir, Apo, Analo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhi, Revacha. We were preaching in local areas, and one Mataji came, and she came with her child. The child is grown up 10th or 12th class. So he was not able to understand why we perform Aarti. Why in the temples we perform Aarti. And the basic logic which Matajis and some people outside they give, we perform Aarti so that the Lord is pleased. He bestows us all the blessings. We should do this as a pious activity. Then I asked the boy, can you imagine why these elements are there in the Aarti plate? Why these only elements are there? Why flowers? Why water? Why these elements are there? So neither the Mataji was knowing, neither the that boy was knowing. So I told Mataji, if you want to convince this boy to perform Aarti, you have to tell what all these items represent. If you convince the boy that these elements, which is there in the plate of offering to the Lord, if these elements are scientific when they are offered to the Lord, then he will be convinced to do Aarti tomorrow. So actually, those elements are representing this verse only. Bhumi rapanalo vayu kham mano buddhi revacha. Three elements are subtle, which are offered by the worshipper as mind, intelligence, and ego to the Supreme Lord. He engages his mind, he uses his intelligence, he surrenders his ego towards the Lord while performing Aarti. But the other elements in the plate, which is offered to the Lord, are representing these elements. Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu. Water is there, fire is there, Bhumi element is there. So these five elements are representing that Aarti plate. So I told, if you convince this boy that these are the elements of your own body you are offering to the Lord, of the elements of the planet you are offering to the Lord, then he will be convinced to offer Aarti to the Lord. This way, Prabhupada also mentions about the first word, Ashto. What are these 8 elements? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego, all together. These 8, these are separated material energies. These are not like intrinsic activity, intrinsic elements of the Lord. Bhumi, earth includes all objects of sense perception. Whatever we can perceive through the eyes, that is represented by Bhumi element, which includes form, taste, gandh, shabda, and sparsh. Within the earth are the fragrances of roses, the taste of sweet fruit, and whatever else we want. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Sarva Kama Duga Mahi, the earth contains all our requirements. Thus, the objects of sense perception are all present in Bhumi, the earth. The gross material elements and subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and ahankar, constitute the total material energy. While the total material energy are the three material modes or qualities, these qualities, Satoguna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna, belong not to the soul but to the material energy. It is because of the interaction of these three material modes of nature that the five knowledge senses, gathering senses, the five working senses, and their control of the mind are manifested. Then, according to these modes, the living entity gets the opportunity to perform different types of karma with different types of knowledge, thinking, feeling, and willing. Thus, the bodily machine begins to work. Like machine has different parts, so different parts are mentioned in this verse. All the elements. Then the intelligent part, like the computer has a CPU, the computer has a keyboard, laptop has a keyboard, everything. So these are all elements in there in the body which acts like a machine. And Prabhupada says that the bodily machine begins to work. I was describing about a Rath Yatra pastime in our local areas where a verse came where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in front of the Rath Yatra cart. Rath Yatra is happening and Lord Chaitanya is pulling the Rath. So during our Rath Yatra, so much management happens. The sound system, everything we have to manage, and Rath is being pulled, and people are pulling the Rath in a conscious that they can eliminate their lot of sins. Anybody who pulls the rath will get rid of his thousands of sinful activities. Some of these people have these mentalities. That is good. At least they are coming near to Jagannath to remove their sins. But when Lord Chaitanya was there in front of the Rath Yatra cart, he was in the mood of Radharani, and he was pulling the Rath in a way that he's bringing Krishna to Vrindavan. And Lord Chaitanya is bringing Krishna to Vrindavan. A lot of verses he speaks glorifying Vrindavan, in which a famous verse comes Vrindavan Govardhana Yamuna Pulinavan. Lord Chaitanya tells, don't you remember Vrindavan? Don't you remember Govardhan, where all the pastimes used to take place? Don't you remember the Yamuna Tat, where all the Rasadika Leelas happens? Have you forgotten that Kemana Chitta Pasarila, your consciousness has totally changed. When you left Vrindavan and you have gone to Mathura and Dwarka, your change in consciousness has happened. Now you are in different association, now you are having different Sangha, now you are having different form. Lord Chaitanya is telling to Jagannath Ji. Because Jagannath Ji was in the, because Sri Mandir is considered as Dwarka, where Krishna is like a king. There, Lord Chaitanya is reflecting the mood of Gopis and Radharani. He says about the identification of Gopis, and he says, Deha Smriti Nahi Yar, Sansara Kupa. That Gopis and Radharani, they don't have any consciousness about their own body. Deha Smriti Nahi Yar. So anybody who is having a consciousness for his body, he will be in this sansara. But those who are not having any bodily conscious, they are called as muktas. Here in this purport, Prabhupada quotes one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, where from Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. This word Sudurlabha is very important. It comes in many of the places in Srimad Bhagavatam. And there is a very famous verse which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur used to recite and used to meditate on that verse frequently. Labdhva Sudurlabhamidam Bahusambhavante. That it's very rare to get this human body. It's very rare. Labdhva Sudurlabham idam. Durlabha means difficult. Sudurlabha means very difficult. But very great fortune has happened that we have gained this human body. Labdhva sudurlabhamidam bahu sambhavante. Bahu sambhavante means after ending lot of other bodies, we have got this body. Bahu sambhavante. So there are different processes which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, and if one wants to read the highest of all those topics, one has to do the PhD study of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya sat with Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, and he described in detail about the different topics and essence of all Vedic literatures, which is commonly known in Chaitanya Charitamrita as Rupa Shiksha and Sanatan Shiksha. Based on this topic, I will just take some verses from Rupa Shiksha in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So whenever devotees used to visit Vrindavan, like if somebody visits Vrindavan from our ashram, like our Premanjan Prabhu has gone to Vrindavan now, when he comes back, people will ask, have you brought the Giriraj sweets? Have you brought some Mahaprasad from Vrindavan? But whenever devotees during Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, they used to visit Vrindavan, there were different sets of questions being asked. Can you think of what set of questions devotees would have asked when people visit Vrindavan. They used to inquire, what are the activities of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami there in Vrindavan? What are they doing? What are they eating? So let's dive deep into some those verses, very beautiful verses, where this is described. So Kavi Karnapur, he explains many verses glorifying Rup Goswami. In one of the verse and one of the verse in this Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, which describes about the glories of Rup Goswami. Priya Swarupe, Daita Swarupe, Prema Swarupe, Sahajavirupe, Nijanurupe, Prabhu Eva Rupe, Tatanurupe, Savilas Rupe. Rupe, Rupe, Rupe. So many times Rup Goswami's word has come. Vedvyas ji and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, all these great souls, they have a very beautiful poetic sense. Whenever they describe scripture, they embellish with so many beautiful things like this. This word has come so many times in this word, in this verse. The meaning of this verse is Srila Rupa Goswami, who was dear friend of Sarup Damodar Goswami, Priya Sarupe, he was very dear to Sarup Damodar Goswami, was the exact replica of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was very, very dear to the Lord. Being an embodiment of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, Rupa Goswami was naturally very beautiful. Beautiful is also means Rupa. It's considered describing about the Rupa. The Rupa Goswami was naturally very beautiful. He very carefully followed the principle enunciated by the Lord, and he was a competent person to explain properly the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. Mahaprabhu expanded his mercy to Srila Rupa Goswami just so he could render service by writing transcendental literatures. Although when we read scriptures, some people start with Bhagavad Gita and sometimes the whole life ends with Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes we are not able to finish Bhagavad Gita. But according to the great scholars and great devotees, the the book which defines Gaudiya Vaishnavas is actually Srila Rupa Goswami has written Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. If somebody wants to claim himself as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, he must have read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Granth. So that is the one major book among many which Rupa Goswami has written. Describing further in Chaitanya Charitamrita about whenever somebody used to come from Vrindavan, Mahaprabhura yat bada bada bhakta matra rupa sanatana sabara kripa gaurav patra. Among all the great devotees which were followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest mercy was received by these two great souls, which is Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Rupa Sanatan Sabara Kripa Gaurav Patra. They were the recipients of great mercy. And we can imagine from this only that Mahaprabhu spent so much time describing about the glories of Vedic Dharma and the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, sitting with Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. And both of the places where Mahaprabhu sat, one of the places very famous for Mayavadis, Varanasi and Prayagraj, these all places. Not even Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu didn't sat with Goswamis in those places. He sat in those places where descriptions of highest love is described. Kashi and Varanasi, he sat and described. केहा यदि देश आए देखी वृंदावन तारा प्रश्न रेना प्रभुरा पार्षदगण. So anybody who used to visit Vrindavan, केहा यदि देश आए देखी वृंदावन, इस देश से जाके वृंदावन में जाके कोई दर्शन लेने जाता था जब, देखिए वृंदावन, तारा प्रश्न करे ना प्रभुरा पार्षदगण. All the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to ask these questions. Whoever used to visit Vrindavan. Kaha toma kaiche rahe Rupa Sanatan. Please describe how Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami are there in Vrindavan. Kaiche rahe, kaiche vairagya, kaiche bhojan. How they are living. How is they promoting vairagya in others' life? Kaiche bhojan. What are they eating? Very important. What are they eating in Vrindavan? Kaiche ashta prahir kahna Krishna bhajan. How they are performing Krishna bhajan in ashta prahir, 24 hours. One prahar is how much? 3. 8 into 3, 24. So they're asking how they are performing Krishna bhajan. This subject matter is very important for us also, because we are also somehow living in Vrindavan, which has been mercifully made by Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So we are also living here, and by these questions we should identify ourselves how we are spending our time, because when these questions are answered, this is how is expected to some limit for us also. We can't imitate the Goswamis, and we should never imitate the Goswamis. But for some extent, we can get inspiration. What is their mood to stay in Vrindavan? Kaiche ashta prahar karena Shri Krishna bhajan, tabe prasamiya kahe sei bhaktagan. The Lord's associates would ask, how is that Rup and Sanatan are engaging in devotional service 24 hours daily? At that time, the person who had returned from Vrindavan would praise Srila Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Aniketa duhe vane yata vrikshagan, ek ek vrikshera tale, ek ratri shayan. We don't have so many rooms and so many places to sleep. And even if we sleep in this rainy season in different trees, next day we will be in the Seva Sthan taking some medicines. But Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami is described sleeping among different trees every day. Aniketa duhavane yata vrikshagan. The brothers actually have no fixed residence. So the question was asked, where they live? Keha rahe. So the answer is, the brothers actually have no fixed residence. They reside beneath trees. One night under one tree and the next night under another. This is how they used to live. Next question was what they were eating, how they're living and what they're eating. Vipragreha sthula bhiksha kaha madhukari suksharuti chana chivaye bhoga parihari. Srila Rup and Sanatan Goswami beg a little food from the houses of Brahmanas, giving up all kinds of material enjoyment. They take only some dry bread and fried chickpeas. Chickpeas क्या होता है प्रभु? पोहा होता है? चीड़ा? चना? Dried bread and fried chickpeas. Can't imagine. So that is how their vairagya is described. Somehow or other, in our ISKCON temples, a lot of feast happens. And so many times people complain, why there is not paneer today? There is a feast today. But this whole establishment has been made by the Goswamis. If somebody does tapasya, other gets the fruits of it. So Goswamis have done tapasya. That's why Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is so highest. And they have written such scriptures. And somebody has done tapasya that we have GEV today. So somebody has to do tapasya. Otherwise, no fruitful results will be seen. Others are sometimes enjoying those fruits, or we can say getting benefit of those fruits. But without tapasya, nothing manifests. And tapasya is not mentioned in our bhakti scriptures of going into Himalayas and doing tapasya. but staying within the people and then doing tapasya, like our Goswamis. And that time, Vrindavan was not like Vrindavan today. Even this Vrindavan would have been opulent for the Goswamis. But at that time, when Goswamis were living there, so much vairagya they displayed. Karunya matra hata katha chinda bahirvas Krishna katha Krishna nama nartana ullas. Krishna katha Krishna nam nartana ullas. They carry only water pots. Very famous picture is there where six Goswamis are standing and holding very just water pots and with bare clothes. They carry only water pots and they wear torn quilts. They always chant the holy names of Krishna and discuss his pastime. In great jubilation, they also dance. Like Prabhupada used to not order, instruct his disciples and inspire his disciples to make some pictures always, which depicts the Shastras. So I think these verses depict the picture of the Goswamis, which we commonly see. Six Goswamis standing and having cloths, like here it is mentioned, weird torn cloths, torn quilts, and holding water pots. And they always used to chant holy names, bead bags in the hand. And sometimes they used to dance in great jubilation. Ashtaprahar Krishna Bhajan Chari Dandashayan Nama Sankirtana Seha Nahe Ko Nadin. They engage almost 24 hours daily in rendering service to the Lord. 24 hours daily. They usually sleep only an hour and a half, 1.5 hours. We can do opposite. Sometimes 2-3 hours of chanting becomes so much for us. Like when I was reading those verses in which uh, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radharani and in front of Rath Yatra cart, that time while describing about the gopis and Radharani, here it is mentioned, Chaitanya Charitamrita mentions that Lord Chaitanya was saying, difficulty with the gopis is that they can't forget Krishna. And difficulty with the sadhaka is that they can't remember Krishna. That is the major difficulty. So when Uddhava went to in front of the gopis and he was having that letter, that girl is playing with the dog. She has to be careful. So when Uddhava went, that time Uddhava was presenting the Paramatma Gyan to the gopis. And gopis were saying, you are telling to remember Krishna. And Uddhava was telling, you have to meditate from the feet to the face, just like Ashtanga yogis do. They first meditate on the feet, then to the navel, and then to the face. That's how Paramatma Dhyan is done. And Bhagavatam also describes the verses in which a person has to go from feet to the face. So gopis were listening. Acha, we have to remember the feet and then. But our difficulty is different. That face is not being. The face has captured our heart so much that we can't forget the face. How can we remember the feet first? So Uddhav was sent with this message of doing Ashtanga Yoga. And when Uddhav returned back, he was in a different mood. Asam aho charana renu jusham sam vrindavanam kimapi gulmalata aushadina. Make me a creeper, make me a small grass where people trample upon me. Such beautiful and highest glorification of Vrindavan is there. In other few verses, there is sometimes mentioned that somebody might say this dham is very important. Somebody might say this object of worship or the deity of worship is very important. But we have given our heart to Vrindavan. We don't want any other distractions. These are like distractions for us. If somebody has given his heart to Vrindavan, so that's why the famous verse about Lord Chaitanya and about the description of Vrindavan is there. which mentions that Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesh Tanya Tadhama Vrindavanam. So here they are engaging 24 hours in rendering devotional service to the Lord. They usually sleep only 1.5 hours, and some days, when they continuously chant the Lord's holy name, they do not sleep at all. So these things can't be imitated, otherwise we would have some health crisis. Like our Bhakti Tirth Maharaj used to perform kirtan and dance so much that people used to get carried with him. But if somebody wants to imitate him, even Bhakti Tirth Maharaj and these Goswamis, it will be difficult life for us then. We have to follow Krishna instruction in Bhagavad Gita. Yukta hara viharascha. Proper sleep, proper eating time, proper bhajan. But they are into different realm only. Our Goswamis, they used to perform devotion services 24 hours, and sometimes they don't used to sleep at all. Kabu Bhakti Rasa Shastra Karaye Likhan. What are their activities? About their residence, answer has been given. They used to sleep at different trees. We can't imitate. One room is enough for us. And if you get a better sleep in that room, that will be very nice. And sleeping under different trees, eating by Madhukari, performing bhajan 24 hours a day, sleeping sometime not even 1.5 hours. And then what are their activities? The major activities is excavating all the holy places, writing down Bhakti Shastras. Whenever we go to some programs, the commonly known Shastras are like what? Mahabharat, Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, sometime these kind of a very famous and sometime perverted scriptures also, the Mrityunjay or Govind Prabhu says that it's like a perverted scripture glorifying Karna. So these kind of books are very famous outside, and common set of Shastras are also known by many people like Mahabharata, Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita. These are known, and sometimes people ask what is the difference between Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes Hindus are confused about these two topics also. Then if you tell there are scriptures like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjwal Neenmani, Vidagdha Madhav, Lalita Madhav, Laghu Bhagavad Gita, Brihad Bhagavatam Gita. We have never heard about these books. So Goswamis have written so much. And what to speak of Shad Sandarbhas. If you pick up Shad Sandarbha, our whole lifetime will go away reading those. Jaiva Dharma. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written so many books. Goswamis have written so many books. So these were the activities of the Goswamis about Vrindavan. Kabhu Bhakti Shastra, Kabhu Bhakti Rasa Shastra Karay Likhan. Sometime they used to sit and write Bhakti Rasa Shastra. Chaitanya Katha Shune, and they used to hear also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's glories, because there are some devotees who had associated earlier with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and some devotees have known his pastimes in detail. Chaitanya Katha Sune Kare Chaitanya Chintan. Ei Katha Shuni Mahan Tera Maha Sukha Hoye Chaitanyera Kripa Yahe Taha Ke Vismay. When people used to come from Vrindavan and they used to ask these questions, and when they used to get these answers, what are the Goswamis doing in Vrindavan? Ei Katha Sunu Mahantera Mahasukh Hoye. They used to become very happy just by hearing the activities of Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami in Vrindavan. They used to become very happy. Srila Prabhupada always used to say that we should have some Goswamis in our temples. When Goswamis are there in the temple, the glories spread and people become attracted to Krishna by them. And he also wanted that in Vrindavan temples, like our Krishna Balram temple, there should be some people who are representing Goswamis, who are living like Goswamis, not expecting any name and fame, but actually living like Goswami. Sometimes I used to think one of our Goswamis staying in Chennai. He writes scriptures. He gives scriptures. What is his name? Huh? Bhanu Swami Maharaj. He writes scriptures. He gives scriptures. Such a beautiful way he is giving scriptures that we can't imagine, because translation and editing of such Vishwanath Thakur's, who could have imagined that somebody would read scriptures about Vishwanath Thakur, what he has written in English language. So such more people are required. If they sit and just write scriptures and translate scriptures for us, who are actually, we can't understand Sanskrit, and sometimes not even Bengali properly we understand. Srila Jayapataka Maharaj learned Bengali. Have you seen a video of earlier video of Jayapataka Maharaj giving lectures in Bengali? It, our Prabhupada said that people will learn Bengali to read Chaitanya Charitamrita and to relish Chaitanya Charitamrita. And one of the example is Srila Jayapataka Maharaj. I've seen that video, just a small clip of that video. He's sitting in Vyasasana and giving lecture to all Bengalis. He's American. Such an inspiring video that is. So, "Ei katha shuni mahantera mahasukh hoye chaitanya ra kripa yaha taha ka vismay." Like there is a famous thing which says that falena parichayate, that a person understand the glory of another person by seeing the results, how he has gained mercy. So by hearing the descriptions of the Goswamis in Vrindavan, devotees here in Jagannath Puri, when they hear and they say, yes, this is possible, because Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami got lot of mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So it's obvious they will be living life like this, in Vairagya, reading scriptures, writing scriptures, hearing about Lord Chaitanya. It's natural for them, because they have gained a lot of mercy from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tara ki vismay. What is difficult in understanding this? Because somebody who has received mercy will spend his time like that only. चैतन्यरा कृपा रूप लिख्याय छिनापने रसामृत सिंधु ग्रंथेरा मंगलाचरण. In the Mangalacharan verse of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Rupa Goswami has written this thing, which describes in intention form that how he has received mercy of Lord Chaitanya. हृदयस्य प्रेरणाय प्रवर्तो अहम वराक रूपोऽपि तस्य हरे पदकमलं वन्दे चैतन्य देवस्य. Here in humility, Rupa Goswami is saying, I am Varak Rupo. What is Varak? Can't even say about Rupa Goswami. Speaking about Varak Rupo, you can all search on your own. Can't even say sitting here about Rupa Goswami like that. But he's saying that I'm like that, but by Lord Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's mercy, which was bestowed upon me, I am able to write this Grantha, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Hidi yasse prerana. There was a inspiration which was given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only to write such a Grantha. Although in the previous verse it was mentioned how Rupa Goswami is very beautiful, but in this verse, in humility, he is saying this. Ei mata dasha dina prayag rahiya Shri Rupa Shiksha Dila Shakti Sanchariya. When was this given? When was this mercy given? In Prayagraj for 10 days. This is a famous chapter of Rupa Shiksha. I thought we will cover some verses of Rupa Shiksha. It's already there. प्रभु कहे सुना रूप भक्ति रसेरा लक्षण सूत्र रूप कहे विस्तार न याए वर्णन. I will give you some drops of bhakti rasa, some lakshan, some hint about bhakti rasa. I can't describe in full detail. You are sitting for 10 days, you are describing entire day, and you are saying it's just a drop of bhakti rasa. Rupa Goswami was given a drop of, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, Sutra Rupa kahe. I'm giving you in a Sutra Rup. Like later you can define in details in different other scriptures which you write when you will be in Vrindavan. Vistaranayaya Varnan. I can't describe in full detail. Interestingly, when Krishna also says, and Prabhupada also says in this purport, while describing the Guhya Gyan in Raj Vidya, Krishna speaks about Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu. And here also, while starting to describe about the highest of all rasas, Bhakti Rasa, in a sutra form, here Mahaprabhu will speak about the same kind of a concept of Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu. He will speak about how these body is made up of elements and how one has to surrender to the Lord in Bhakti Rasa. Para apar shunya gabhir rasa sindhu tomaye chakhite tare kahe ek bindu. Just to describe you and just to relish you, I am giving you one bindu. Rupa Goswami was given one bindu, a drop. Ete brahmand bhari ananta jiva gana 84 laksha yonite karaye brahmana. People are roaming around in 84 lakh species. Brahmand is filled of that. The whole universes are filled with that. All the living entities are there. Keshagre shat bhaga punya shatamsha kari tara sama shoksha jivera swarupa vichari. Jiva is very small, living in all 84 lakh species of life. Keshagra Shataka. We don't have Kesh, but those who have Kesh, they can understand. We have Samshika. Keshagre Shatabhagasya. Anybody knows where this verse come from? Keshagre Shatabhagasya. Where it is? Padma Puran Shloka. Keshagre Shatabhagasya Shatamsa Sadrisha Atmaka Jiva Sukshma Swarupoyam Sankhya Tito Hi Chitkana. Chitkana. They are like Chitkanas, very small particles. They are like the spirit which is there in them. This is not matter. The entire other thing is matter. Another similar kind of a verse is also there. Balagre shatabhagyasa shatada kalpitasyata bhago jiva savigyaya iti chaha parashruti. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu starts with these kind of verses when he says that I will describe you a bindu of bhakti rasa. People sometimes would imagine some esoteric stuff will come, some Rasila, some highest topics will come. But this is how Lord Chaitanya begins the topic. And he says, the living entities are roaming around in 84 lakh species. Sometimes when we also go for kathas and our lectures, people always, those Bhagavad Kathakars on YouTube are speaking so many esoteric stuff. Why these Hare Krishna always speak Bhagavad Gita and such stuff which is very, like, we have to tax our brain to understand those things. Because that's how scriptures have been written. We are not reading outside from scriptures. We can't jump into some esoteric stuff when a person don't understand that he's a soul. First he has to understand he's a soul. Then some esoteric stuff. And that also esoteric stuff starts with some Shant Rasa, Dasya Rasa, then all those things which comes. But we can't jump. Krishna, when he was leaving or disappearing from the planet Earth, like there is a saying, it is one thing to remember Krishna, but it is another thing to be remembered by Krishna. And when he was going from this planet, he remembered personality like Vidura. And he gave orders or instructed Uddhava to go to Badrikashram and stay there and give this knowledge. Interestingly, the knowledge which was given to Uddhava was also all Tattva Gyan. Sometime start reading Bhagavatam from first canto, reaching up to 11th will take lifetime. Thanks to our Vidyapit system that we were able to learn very quickly in those 2 years only. The degrees were coming as if hot cakes. First Bhakti Shastri degree came, the Bhakti Vaibhav degree came, then Bhakti Sarvabhaum degree came. We were thinking, are we qualified for such degrees? But by mercy of our seniors, we were provided this knowledge. Otherwise, just to have a glimpse, what is there in the 11th canto, might take another lifetime to reach up to and get an overview of 11th canto. And some people who are studious, they can read, but not all are like that. So in that 11th canto, also when Uddhav Geet starts, interestingly, Uddhav also was given like Tattvagyan only. Bhagavad Gita encapsulated. भगवत गीता को पूरा सा खोल के पाउडर दिखा दिया अंदर क्या है. 700 shlokas elaborated in so many chapters. And there, if you read those chapters also, you will think, I am reading Bhagavad Gita or Uddhav Gita. Similar to Bhagavad Gita only, but in more detail. And very beautiful verses are there in those Uddhav Gita. There, like in our Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes that where all you can see. When Arjuna asks, Keshu Keshu cha bhaveshu, where all I can see, then Krishna describes, you can see me in water, you can see me in here, among among the Shivas, I am Rudra. Like this he speaks. And when Krishna, same thing he describes in Uddhav Gita, very beautiful one statement comes, which is here, Chaitanya Chadamid also says here, Sukshma Nam Api Aham Jiva. Among all the minute particles which is there in the planet Earth or in the universe, minute things, I am the Jiva. So if somebody goes and searches and telescope bolte microscope microscope telescope to the brilliant of all microscope if you take and you start seeing some Jiva Atmas, very minute roaming around and looks bigger. Among them also, Jiva is the very minute one. So that's why till now they have not even able to see that. So many experiments they do to see that Jiva, but not able to. Because Krishna says in Uddhav Gita, Sukshma Nanam Api Aham Jiva. Among all the minute particles, I am the Jiva Atma. So then Lord Chaitanya further describes in Roop Shiksha, Taram Madhe Stavara Jangama Dui Bhed Jangamatri Yak Jal Sthalachara Vibhed. Sthavar and Jang, living entities which are moving and non-moving. And among the moving ones, among living entities that can move, there are birds, aquatics, and animals. Tara madhya manushya jati api alpatara. Sometimes while going to Bombay and cities like that, Delhi and Bombay, Bangalore, traffic jams, so many vehicles standing in line, especially in this rainy season. Thank God to beautiful roads we have in Maharashtra, which are called as highways. People are standing in jams for thousands of years. Thousands of lifetime is spent in those highways. One time Radhanath Maharaj came from Surat. I think he went for some program in Surat, and when he came back, somebody told him it will be faster to go from road. Another one was saying it will be faster if you come by train. So there were a discussion how Maharaj should travel from Surat to GEV, whether by train or by car. So finally it was decided, let us travel by car. And it took 7.5 hours or 8 hours to reach. So I was going with Maharaj and Maharaj was discussing about different projects. And then he started laughing and saying, I spent so many karmas by traveling 8 hours. Well, so much karma has been exhausted. So I was thinking, if Maharaj says that spending 8 hours is spending like so many karmas we are relieved of, what about those people who are standing in trucks for thousands of hours? How much karma they are burning? But they can't realize they are burning their karma. A great soul can realize that they are burning their karma. So now it has become, whenever I travel, I understand I'm burning my karma if I'm going to Pune. Okay, we'll end by this verse. Tara madhe manushya jati ati alpatara. Tar madhe mlecha pulinda bodha shabhara. So many different varieties of living entities are there. Mlecha, Pulinda, Bodh, and Shabara. Mlecha, Prabhupada described here as uncivilized men who cannot follow the Vedic principles. I will repeat by ending this statement. Uncivilized men who cannot follow the Vedic principles. Who are all there in the world then? So many will come in this category only. If you tell you are a Malecha because you are not following Vedic principle, it will be offensive for them. But scriptures say like that. They are all Malechas. Pulinda, the unregulated ones, and the followers of the Buddhist philosophy. Shabara, the lowest of all men. So this is how Roop Shiksha starts. Vedanishta madhya ardhe ka veda mukhe mane, veda nishiddha papa kare, dharma nahi gane. They say that they are followers of Vedas, but they are not following any Veda. वेद निषिद्ध मध्य अर्धे का वेद मुख्य माने. नाम से ही बोलते हैं हम हिंदू हैं, पर हिंदुओं के कुछ लक्षण उनमें दिखते नहीं है. बस नाम से ही बोलते हम वैदिक धर्म को फॉलो करते हैं. वेद निषिद्ध पाप करे, वेदों को ही उठा के पाप करते हैं कई बार, और वेदों को घर में रख के भी पाप करते हैं. धर्म नहीं गणे, धर्म को कुछ ठीक से पालन नहीं करते. हरे कृष्णा. Anybody has some comments or questions? Thank you very much. श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय. श्री रूप सनातन गोस्वामी जी की जय. हरे कृष्णा. श्रीमद् भागवतम ग्रंथ की जय.